It is Live Bold and Boss Up time, and Steph and I are live at the Mahaffey Theater for the Tampa Bay Tech Powered Up Tech Fest, and we are chatting with Doug Hensel, better known as DJ Fresh. He is a celebrity in this area. Also, we talk with Travis Damato, who is inspiring and changing the lives of youth through music. And we have a really amazing conversation coming up because we're talking about innovation in music and how it impacts everything
All right,
else.
we're here live from TBT Powered Up Tech Fest with Doug and Travis, also known as DJ Fresh Doug, not DJ Fresh Doug, but I didn't want people to get confused. But Doug, tell us a little bit about your background and what you do.
Yeah, so my stage name is DJ Fresh. For the last 25, 26 years, I've been a professional DJ, touring, playing shows, doing anything from, since I'm the official DJ for the Rays, playing live in stadium, pumping up the fans, to doing big, huge corporate events with like MasterCard, doing the Super Bowl with the NFL, Major League Baseball's All-Star Break, cool, fun things like that. And then I also founded the Certified Fresh DJs, which are a crew of DJs all throughout the country that also play at premier events and stuff too. And then I also am the chief revenue officer of a video game development company called PlayPal Studios, where we create video games and immersive experiences on the Roblox platform. So
I had no idea you were into that.
a lot of people don't. Yeah,
That's
it's kind
really
of
cool.
Yeah. So about a year and a half ago, I partnered up with with amazing group of award-winning, talented developers, and kind of started off as chief creative officer, helping to also bring in new business, new clients, and some of my corporate clients, bringing them and transitioning them into the metaverse in the world of gaming, helping them get millions of eyeballs onto their brands, and it's been just an absolute fun ride. So we've got a lot of really crazy things that are about to release as well. We did a huge activation with Swedish House Mafia and Universal Music Group in December, and that was now the highest rated music concert experience on the platform with a 96% rating. So we're extremely, extremely fortunate about that. And that kind of opened and kicked down the doors to now we're working with some of the biggest artists on the planet on activating them on the platform. So we're super excited about that.
So
Yeah.
cool. I love it. Travis.
Yeah, so I am a public school teacher. I'm just wrapping up my 9th year in the classroom. I teach elementary music, so K through 5. I have a big passion for reaching my kids where they are with music that they're familiar with, but also trying to expose them to new ideas that maybe they hadn't thought of, musical styles, composers, or even just sounds that they had never thought of before. So I currently teach in Pasco at Bexley Elementary, although I did spend the first 7.5 years of my career in Hillsborough County, teaching at various schools there. So I teach about 1,300 students right now, and I see just about every kid in the school except for 1 or 2 classes that have our third music teacher as their main person.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I'm sure music has changed a lot since we were in school, like learning the recorder and
Oh, it's funny you mentioned the recorder.
Yeah.
Travis loves the recorder.
Yes. In a lot of ways it has, and in a lot of ways it hasn't. One of my favorite things to say now is that I'm a victim of the public, music education system, which unfortunately for a long time has really been, it's almost like, elementary school is the job of the elementary school teacher for a long time has been to create students to go into the band program in middle school. And the job of the middle school band director is to create kids that are going to go into the high school band. And the job of the high school band director is to create kids that are going to go start, be music education degrees in college, who will then come back and start the cycle over in elementary, middle school, and high school. And it's largely focused on what we call, like the academic terminology would be like common practice period, right? So it's all about quarter notes and half notes and whole notes. What is a measure? The Italian terms, the voice types. And I've always felt like that stuff was useful, but it never really clicked with me as the most important thing. And so a few years ago, there was a nonprofit that came into Hillsborough County called Little Kids Rock, and they're now Music Will. And what they do is they bring in training and funding, and they teach teachers in that county how to teach modern music, because most of us aren't comfortable with it. Most of us, if you're classically trained, you've never really had to look at a mixer before. You've never really thought about how does hip hop actually work. Maybe some of us enjoyed it, but never really learned the inner workings of it and how to teach kids to be comfortable writing hip hop. And what really changed the trajectory of my career and my ideology as a teacher was listening to a video of Victor Wooten that they played. He's an incredible bass player, talking about music as a second language. And unfortunately, like we teach music kind of backwards. So when you think of how you teach your kids to talk, when you teach your 2-year-old how to talk, you're not teaching them the parts of speech. You're not teaching them what a proper noun is. You're not teaching them,
You're just happy to say mama or dad.
Right.
Just say one word, kid. Say one word.
I'm like, I'm thrilled if you can tell me why you're crying right now, please, so I can fix the problem, but you don't teach them, like you never tell a student that you have to learn how to read the letter A before you're allowed to say it.
Right.
But then when we teach music education, we teach music to elementary schoolers, we'll teach it backwards. Well, you can't touch an instrument until you know how to read music. You have to know what C is before you're allowed to play C, which is really backwards. And the other thing that really stuck out to me is he talked about his experience as a kid learning bass. His brother had a band and he was allowed to play with the band, even though he wasn't a professional. And he said that when you're a kid, you get to jam with professionals, right? Nobody says you're only ever allowed to talk to other 2-year-olds. You cannot talk to adults until you know how to talk like an adult. You let them jam with professionals, and that's how kids learn to speak. But again, for whatever reason, for centuries, music education has gone the other way.
Right.
We start by learning all the technical stuff, and then we say, okay, now you're finally allowed to make music. So, kind of what I would love to see in the next 10 years, like if I was going to make an impact on my area, my locality, or my state, whatever, it would be to see that starts to change. So one of the most exciting things I've ever done as an educator was this year we started a modern band. There was no modern bands in elementary school in Pasco County. I spoke to my supervisor about my ideas, and he called me at the end of last year and he said, "Hey, great news. I bought you everything you need to start your modern band." I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome." So our school has their inaugural modern band this year. They got to write a school song, which we didn't have. And then we got to go on a field trip to a recording studio and University of Tampa, just down the road from here, actually. And they got to record in a professional recording studio. They got to see what that was like. And then we put together a music video. And that was just it was so impactful for them to be able to engage in creating music the way that they're used to hearing music created, as opposed to that, we're going to sit down and we're going to learn all our scales today before we can ever make new music,
Well, so that's what I think is really cool about Tampa Bay Tech's Powered Up Festival, right? If it wasn't for this, Travis and I would have never met. And this guy and what he's doing with taking that approach, I didn't have a music teacher like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I can tell you one thing that was impactful about my music teacher, but I guarantee you when those kids grow up that are in Travis's class, they're going to remember him probably more than they will any other teacher.
Yeah.
And that's what's really cool. So I was really glad that he was our moderator for our music and technology segment, because him talking about the passion and actually doing it. It's one thing to talk about it, but when you're actually changing the curriculum, when you're disrupting in a good way for the kids, like that's how you bring about change.
Absolutely.
So
like, can you imagine if you would have had a teacher like Travis whenever you were growing up? I mean, like you still are doing super cool things with music right now, but like, who knows?
Yeah, I actually would be able to play an instrument, not just a turntable. Like that would be awesome. I watch all these band people play stuff and, and instruments, even when we have our production stuff and we're doing studio sessions and stuff. And, my two partners in our music company, they'll pick up and just start strumming and writing, or if we got to do an electric guitar part, my partner will just get up there and just start wailing. And I'm just like sitting there twiddling my thumbs like, dang, man, I really
Yeah.
wish I knew how to play an instrument.
It's never too late.
It's cool to be a DJ, but it's also cool to be a rock star. You know? So yeah, so kudos on that.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we're at a AI tech innovation, right? Powered Up Tech Fest. And it's amazing that we have a panel talking about music and how AI and innovation have been integrated into our music. Please share with me some of the things and our listeners, like what were you sharing on stage? How has it been integrated? Because not a lot of people think about that, about AI and innovation connected with music.
Well, and I think, I have never met one person in my entire life that doesn't listen to music.
Right.
Right. So when we just kind of break it down, music is something that's so beautiful and it's the universal language. Right. And one of the things that we talked about is you don't need to understand, if I'm from Brazil and you're Canadian and he's from Japan, we don't necessarily need to understand each other, but we can still like the same music. We can still feel the beat, feel the passion, even though I may not understand what they're saying. I get booked for so many different events where I have to really dig deep to find, we used to have a sushi battle here and it was all the hottest sushi restaurants battling it out. And I would have to play like these crazy Japanese kind of inspired songs throughout certain times, or Blue Oyster Cult's Godzilla song, just as a funny thing. But I didn't necessarily have to understand, but I could still do my research and go, these, cherry blossom-esque style, songs are so beautiful. They will fit perfect for this vibe. Or if I'm doing something, I just had a buddy of mine who's a huge, massive DJ out of Pittsburgh. And he's like, hey, man, I know you're the official DJ for Gasparilla and you do the pirate ship and all that. He's like, I have a really crazy request, but I need your help. He's like, I need some pirate songs. Like, I don't even, like, they're not in our music pools. You can't just go out and really, like, find pirate songs, blah, blah, blah. Luckily, and this is how music and technology and things like that kind of coincide, now that we have things like Spotify, before, if I didn't have it on a vinyl record, on a CD, on a digital file or something like that, I wouldn't be able to get it for him. And I wouldn't know where to really look. Okay. There's not really like music catalogs. I mean, you can try, but now I can go into Spotify and type in pirate song playlist or pirate playlist.
Yeah.
And I'm going to find a handful of songs I didn't even know existed because it's doing the work for me and categorizing them for me. If I have to do a salsa event or something like that, or maybe it's a wedding or something, and the bride's, I want some salsa, blah, blah, blah. Well, I can look on Spotify and look what the hottest salsa gyms are right now, and it saves me so much time. So little things like that are huge workflow technology helpers for me in just a practical sense. Now, talking about AI and creating music with AI, and that's one thing. But one of the things that we talked about, and I'll let Travis expand on this too, was the thing that everybody seems to like about AI right now in music is the educational side. The fact that somebody who can't afford to get a guitar, as long as they have some sort of maybe a laptop or they can borrow one or whatever, these laptops come with GarageBand now. You can go in there and you can create a guitar sound. You can create a drum sound. You don't need to have a drum kit. You can try as hard as you can to be a band or try instruments or make a song without necessarily being able to. Before, you would have to go out and either borrow a guitar, which a lot of people wouldn't let you do, or you'd have to go out and buy it. So that technology of having these programs has allowed so many more people. That's why you're seeing just so much music being released every day, because now so many more people have access to being able to make music.
Yeah, when Apple debuted GarageBand, over a decade ago, the joke among the music community was that you were buying GarageBand and you got a free laptop with it because it was just so immensely powerful. And even
that laptop was made for musicians. Like Apple still, like, you never see any DJs playing with a laptop and it's anything other than an Apple.
Right.
Apple is pretty much our industry standard because they went so design heavy for musicians.
Really?
Yeah, and so now Apple has had for years one of the coolest tools that they've had in GarageBand and in Logic, their professional version of GarageBand, is a drummer, and it's a very intuitive interface. First of all, drum kit takes up a lot of room.
Right.
A cheap drum set, you're looking at $500 or $600. Even used, you might be looking at $300 for a cheap drum set,
Right.
and the cymbals are going to sound like crap. There's nothing worse than cheap
It's gonna be
cymbals.
beat. Yeah.
Now, I don't have to know how to play drums to be able to go into even my iPhone. I don't even need an iPad or a laptop. If I have an iPhone or my parents have an iPhone, all I have to be able to do as a kid is to open up GarageBand, click on the drummer, and I can pick between like 3 or 4 different personalities. The only one I remember is Darcy, because she's always like the default choice, right? And I think there's a guy named Paul, and he's a rocker. Darcy is more of a singer-songwriter. So I pick a personality, and it automatically picks drum sounds. They're highly authentic. It sounds like a real drum kit. And then I drag and drop a dot into a grid that determines volume level and complexity, and I can sit and I can experiment with that, and it's going to create a drum groove for me, just like that. I mean, within 5 or 6 seconds, I can have my drum track ready to go.
That's amazing.
And now they've kind of taken it to the next step, which I think a lot of professionals will see it as kind of like cheap, and they're worried that it's going to proliferate bad music or mediocre music. But so the newest feature that they have is they have now a smart bass player and a smart pianist. And again, I don't have to have a piano at my home. I don't have to have a MIDI controller, which again, that takes up a lot. It takes up space. It takes up money. Even a cheap MIDI controller, you're looking at $100, $60 to $100. And for a kid, that's a big ask for my parents. And now I can take this piano player and I can really fine tune, how do I want chords to be voiced? Do I want the right hand all the way up here? Or do I want the left hand all the way down here? Do I want to be kind of close together in the middle somewhere? And I can kind of dial in all this stuff. And, as a creator, and, you can probably speak to this too, but like the whole imposter syndrome that you get, the constant fear that you're not good enough,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Anything that kind of creates friction in the creative process is bad. And to me, this is not a replacement for my creativity or for teaching my students how to really write a piano part. For me, I see it as like a hey, let's take away the barriers of I got to know what a quarter note is. I have to know how MIDI functions. All I have to be able to do is click on that smart piano player, plug in a couple of chords, and now I know what they sound like, and so it gets that idea out instantly. Is it ever going to be something that's radio ready with a smart piano player? Probably not. Maybe, we've talked about maybe 5 years from now,
Sure.
it might be.
Who knows what the future holds?
Right. But at least for right now, it's not something that's a substitute for creativity, but these kinds of tools, they enhance it so much just to be able to get that idea out right away, put it into the universe and see how it sounds. Kind of stops you from editing out before you've ever really started.
Mm-hmm.
I concur.
I really love how you're positively changing and affecting all those children's lives in that way, right? Like you said earlier, just really changing and being innovative in the way you teach. That's amazing. We need more teachers like you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, Doug,
Travis.
thank you for
Yes.
coming on. This has been a really cool conversation and very enlightening for myself and our listeners. So thank you again for coming on.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Thank you.